Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, and welcome to another edition of Hot Takes and Just Like That edition. Now, I am here with a returning friend, Stefan from the Madonna podcast, MLVC. Stefan, welcome. How are you?
Just like that, here we are.
And just like that, it's time for you to spill after all these months.
Yeah, where do you want to start? Let's just dive in.
Basically, what you've been kind of alluding to a little bit on social media for people who follow you is that you were actually a background actor this entire summer for And Just Like That.
Correct.
But this may be a little surprising for people.
You know what? It's background work. I don't think a lot of people think about background work at all. I think, background actors are sort of, because they're in the background and they're not the main focus of the scene, no one sort of thinks about it. Now that's all I watch. After doing background work, I now just watch all the background actors to see what they're doing. It was a dream for me to be a part of the Sex and the City world because I was a fan of the original show, obviously. I'm obsessed with the new version. And I had managed a small acting studio many years ago in New York, and two of the credits that all the actors who walked in the door had on their resume was the Law and Order franchise and Sex and the City. And I was always so jealous that they were able to be part of Sex and the City. And every time I'd watch it, I'd be able to identify some of the actors in the background. So when they were announcing that they were going to come back and do this new iteration And Just Like That, I was like, because I missed my opportunity to be a part of the original run. I couldn't figure out how to do it. And then I missed both movies. And I was so pissed because I was like, when I heard that the third movie was not happening, I thought, damn, there goes my chance. Damn it, Kim Cattrall. I was like, I was finally going to make it on the show. And she nixed that. But so when they were announcing that they were bringing the show back, I was elated because I'm like, I don't know how, but I'm going to find a way to be on this show, because it's a favorite show and I just wanted to be a part of it. And I did. So it was like, goal achieved.
So what I want to hear from you, I mean, this is sort of like a general overview of things that I want to know about. And then we'll jump all over, but sure. These are like things off the top of my mind that I want to know about. Number one,
okay.
How did you get the gig? How many episodes were you part of? I want to hear everything about Cynthia Nixon's wig, the Che Diaz of it all. And then of course, like the nitty gritty of everything you heard, the good, the bad, all the tea. We need you to spill it here.
So to preface this, background actors do sign an NDA, and so I will talk about what I assume anyone can talk about just because it was just like we were working and this was the work experience. I got involved. There's a casting agency in New York City. It's huge. I think they do tons of background casting called Grant Wilfley. They're fantastic. I was able to get background work through them to do The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which was another dream come true. Mm-hmm. A friend of mine had told me she did background work for them. She forwarded me the casting agency information. And basically, in order to do if you want to become eligible, you just sign up. You create a profile on their website. You fill out, age, height, weight, all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you send them your availability. They have like a page of what shows they're casting for. And you're like, I want to work. And sometimes they'll contact you and they'll say, are you available?
Do you get to pick the show that you work for, or this is just general?
You can. Yeah. They have like 10, 15 shows running at a time, and you can pick the shows that you want to make yourself available for. Now, just because you say you're available does not mean you're going to be chosen. Because every week I was trying to get on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and get on And Just Like That. Obviously, from a production standpoint, they don't want the same background people in every single scene because it'll look repetitive. Obviously you'll start to recognize, oh, there's that tall guy again. He was in that last scene. So they just want to make it as diverse as possible.
Wait, by the way, speaking of quote unquote, speaking of quote unquote background actors in multiple scenes, do you know that Andy Cohen he played an extra in 2 separate episodes on 2 separate seasons of Sex and the City?
Really?
Yes, he played. There was an episode
Before his Bravo fame,
Yes,
obviously?
this is when he
Okay.
was just an executive at CBS. Maybe he was an executive at Bravo. This is way before anybody knew who he was. This is because he was so close with SJP. He was in season 6. Somebody was trying on shoes. I think Carrie was trying on a shoe, preparing for Paris. So he's in like one of those final episodes
I see.
of that. And then he was in the episode called All That Glitters, where Carrie goes out without Aiden to the gay bar. He plays,
Oh, sure. Yeah. And Stanford runs into her. Yeah.
Yeah, and he runs into Stanford and she runs into Stanford and Anthony. He's like just like a guy at the bar.
Oh, interesting. Yes. And that is Carrie's gay friend that she's out with that Stanford gets jealous with is the guy who was in Looking and in with Jennifer Coolidge.
The White Lotus.
The White Lotus, yes. So he was the guy who the gay hotel manager from White Lotus.
Murray something.
Yes. Murray Bartlett.
Murray Bartlett.
Okay, brain is working now. Murray Bartlett. Yeah, Murray Bartlett.
Oh my God, I didn't realize that he played the Yes, of course, the Australian hot guy who was like she's cheating on Stanford with.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my God, I don't think people were really this is the first I've heard about that was him.
Yeah. Well, it's because he doesn't have his mustache. He's like, it was, the 90s or the early 2000s, it was a long time ago.
Yeah. Love that little fun fact. Okay. Back
well,
to
that's the thing. But you can find tons of, honestly, there's so many famous actors from Sex and the City that are probably either like little characters like that from the show or actors who did background work and are now probably working actors. It's a great experience. You are there with the crew, with the main actors. You are experiencing production. Like as a film major, it was a dream for me to have been on a set for Mrs. Maisel first and Just Like That. And you get to see how production works. And it is no joke. I mean, all of that union issues that were floating around the last couple of months about, making sure that the union people get paid the wages that they need to get paid and whatnot. It's true. I mean, I think it was 14-hour days for both Mrs. Maisel and Just Like That. Your call times are super early. And
tell me what were your hours?
It usually depends. I mean, most of the days that I shot, we were shooting during the daytime. None of the stuff I did for And Just Like That was shot on a soundstage. It was shot in actual, real locations throughout New York. I did 4 scenes, 1 scene, and it's all shot completely out of sequence. I guess it's dependent on people's availability and what they how they need to do but it's completely out of order. The first scene that I shot was, I believe, something for episode 3. And then the second scene I shot was a 2-day shoot. And that was from the season premiere, the very first episode.
So let's go. This is interesting. Let's go chronologically in order, the order in which you shot your scenes, and really specify the episodes. If you remember the episode titles, I can pull those up, and the exact scenes that you were in.
So first episode I shot was the 3 women that are sitting with Stanford. It's Carrie, Miranda, Charlotte. Stanford keeps getting hit in the back of the back of his chair by the waiter keeps coming out. This is the worst 4 top ever. So that was the very first scene that we shot. It's very you get there super early. Your call time is usually 7:30 for background work because you do have to go to wardrobe. You are asked to bring wardrobe items. You're given you're playing an upscale restaurant worker. Please bring, they tell you the season is summer. Please bring items that are summer. Don't, avoid this, avoid that. Try and, so they're giving you a tone once you know what role you're playing as a background worker, whereas if you were in the park, sometimes if you were a Central Park goer, they would be wear outside, this or that. But because it was an upscale restaurant, you're meant to dress upscale attire, business casual.
So you have to bring suits to the set?
So you bring a couple options for wardrobe, and then wardrobe and they never liked my clothes, but they have a stacked wardrobe on racks behind them. So sometimes they'll pick your pants. Oh, I like your pants, or I like your shirt, like, and they'll mix and match. And yeah, that was the first scene that we did. I mean, luckily I was a restaurant patron, so I got to sit for most of the time.
So are you now making friends with your fellow background people?
Yes, of course. Yeah. I mean, it's like camp, or
I mean,
like,
are you now like on a text? Do you have like a group text with your
yes,
buddies?
I text with you do get a chance to make friends with people, but it is tough because the magic of background work, you don't get to talk to each other on set. The amount of time, I felt bad for some of the PAs because literally their job is to just walk around the room and tell everyone to shut up. And so if you see background workers laughing and talking and all, we are literally pantomiming that. That is all completely fake. They add in the background noise at the end because they don't want the mics picking up any of that noise.
So how long did this, where he keeps getting hit, but with the door, how long did this scene, this is like a 4-minute scene? How
if
long?
That, yeah. I mean, if that, it's like, I mean, the scene structure is definitely longer on And Just Like That than they were on Sex and the City. I felt like the pacing is much quicker in the original Sex and the City, and Just Like That.
Everything is so slow on And Just Like That. It makes me crazy.
I feel like, well, and intentionally, I think that was the point of they wanted you to sort of sit with the characters a little bit longer. They didn't want it to be so like frenetic and quick. That restaurant scene, it's the scene where Carrie's talking about Natasha being back, and
right.
Why did she just found out that Big had left Natasha money in the will, and why did he? It's not the money, but why is she even in the will to begin with? And right. I thought I was doing good. I was washing my hair and I was doing the podcast, and so it's that scene. And they run that scene probably 20, 30 times, and they film it from all different angles. Like, that was an almost all day affair. I want to say that probably took 6 hours to shoot because they're shooting a master shot, they're shooting doubles, singles, reverse angles, all of that. I mean, it's this tiny, cramped little restaurant, so they're having to, and if you watch that scene, the chefs that are behind them in the kitchen making food, those are extras. The wait staff, everyone sitting in the restaurant, no one is authentic. Everything is completely fabricated in the world, which is why it's amazing. Like, I think if you watch a show and you're like, they're in a park or they're in a restaurant or whatnot, people might think, oh, those are just restaurant patrons. No, it's all background workers that they pulled in for that show. So it's pretty fantastic. And it's, when you walk in and they sort of are figuring out where they're going to place you. Because again, it's like, what colors are you wearing? I'm super tall. So like they don't want super tall people sitting too close. So I wasn't able to sit super close to them. Age is definitely a factor. I mean, I was one of the older background workers, and they would always use the younger kids in their 20s to sit around the cast. And, they were all there, sitting in one of the restaurant booths, just having, either a production meeting or just like as actors, Cynthia Nixon, Kristen Davis, Sarah Jessica Parker, Willie Garson, they were just sort of chatting with each other.
Now, did they take your phone? Did they lock your phones up?
So I thought they were going to. I did. I thought it was going to be like going to the Madonna Madam X concert where they were just going to be like, you have to put your phone in a yonder case and you cannot use it. And it was not that way at all. Like, you aren't explicitly told no photographs because, again, like I said, the production does not want you to spoil things for the rest of the world. And I assume if you were to take pictures on set and publish them on social media, you would probably be sued because I think it's a direct violation of your NDA that you signed by being a background worker. But then you probably also would never work in town ever again. Everyone's allowed to have their phones. You're not allowed to.
It's like in your pocket.
Yeah. I mean, on some of the two of the scenes, they asked me to use my phone as a prop because obviously everyone has cell phones, and Sex and the City / And Just Like That lives in reality. It's not like Mrs. Maisel where it's a period piece and your cell phones didn't exist. So they're not pretending that cell phones don't exist in And Just Like That. But you're not supposed to use them to like take pictures or,
right.
Obviously take phone calls when you're on set.
Okay. What was the next scene that you shot?
So yeah, we were at that restaurant on the Upper East Side all day. It was the two scenes that they shot with them at the table with Stanford getting hit. And then I was also present for the reverse where they had Willie Garson and Charlotte talk at the front of the restaurant when he first arrives.
Oh, where they
I
have
was
that
in the
where
back.
she says she's been talking about him in therapy. Or
Yes,
no, the
yeah.
reverse. He's been talking about her in therapy.
Yeah. It's funny that you're privy to what's happening because you don't know where the conversations are going to fit in and why they're having them. And the conversation that Carrie has with them at the table where she's talking about Big is gone and Natasha is back. As we're sitting there listening to this conversation, I'm thinking, oh my God, that's what they're doing. Like we suddenly knew the quote unquote big secret that they were harboring for the season. And how long am I going to have to keep this secret? How long are they going to wait until they air this episode and I can't talk about it? And I wanted to be fair to friends and family because everyone knew that I was doing the show. But they were like, oh, what happens? What's going on? I'm like, I cannot tell you because I wanted them to be surprised and figure it out. And
well, I kept asking you. I remember.
Yes, you did.
I remember. I kept asking you. I mean, well, every day after you filmed, you were texting.
What happened? What happened?
Myself and Tony, your co-host, we're on a group text, and you were always like, oh my God, it was another like 14-hour day. And when the three of us got dinner in the midst of all of this, and I asked you like, what are they doing with Samantha? And you would you basically kind of told me.
I don't think I answered just to be still aligned with my NDA. I think I just nodded my head.
Right,
or I raised an eyebrow.
Sure.
The very next day, they brought me back. Production texted us in the middle of the day saying, hey, can you do tomorrow and Wednesday? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll come back again. It was a completely different scene. We were shooting the season premiere. So it's the very first scene that they're doing at the restaurant when the camera swoops in and Carrie turns around and so Carrie, party of three, and she cheers and Bitsy Von Muffling comes up to them. So I was thrilled to have been part of that scene. We knew it was going to be the season premiere, that it was the first scene of the show. They shot it reverse order. They did the interior restaurant scene where they're all sitting down first day. And for that scene, I was literally just an outdoor pedestrian walking. They shot it at the Whitney, the Whitney Museum in Meatpacking has that like ground floor restaurant with those huge, beautiful windows.
And then for some reason, when they leave, they're at Radio City.
I love that. Yeah,
drove me
I was
nuts.
like, that's what's sort of fun about that show is as a New Yorker, you can see the inconsistencies for the neighborhoods. Like I knew that they were shooting that at the Whitney, and then I was like, they didn't hop on the train and get all the way uptown. But
it was never like that in the original. Like the locations were consistent.
Were they though? Do we know that?
I mean, I guess we don't know that for sure, but there wasn't anything as glaring as that.
Yeah. And I mean, who knows? Maybe we're supposed to believe that Carrie and Miranda hopped on the train and went uptown so Carrie could go podcast. Who knows? But I was just an outdoor pedestrian, literally spent all day walking around the restaurant. You just blurs in the background. Mm-hmm. And that's what blows my mind on the background work is the amount of time and energy all these people put into being a background worker. And you are literally a fuzzy blur passing for 2 seconds in the background. And that's your job. And I mean, the amount of COVID tests you have to take in order to get on set, waiting to get on set.
What was the COVID protocol?
You have to be tested twice before you can get on set. You test, it's like a day before, it's 2 days. It's so like if you have to shoot on a Monday, you have to do COVID test Saturday, COVID test Sunday, and then you're on set on that Monday. You have to wear a mask the whole time. Only when you're not shooting, they'll say background masks off, and then everyone stuffs their masks in a pocket, and then they shoot. And then the moment they say cut, those masks go back on.
Now, regarding that scene, that intro scene, that was when, because we had talked about this over text, because everybody started catching wind to the fact that suddenly Cynthia Nixon was wearing a wig. But in that first scene, isn't that her real hair? Let's get into the Cynthia Nixon wig discussion, and then we'll pick up with your scenes.
Sure. I was definitely certain the last time I shot on that show, she had a wig on, but I don't think she was wearing a wig the first day or first 2 times I saw her. I could definitely tell she was wearing a wig the last time I saw her. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm a gay man. I've seen drag queens. I know what wigs look like. I'm a Madonna fan. I know what a good wig looks like. But the first 2 times, I don't believe it was. I think it was. And I don't know. Did you just see her in the magazine spread that she just posted? Oh my gosh, that's her real hair. She looks fantastic. Yeah. I thought she looked amazing. Who knows what the reason why she was wearing a wig? Like, I think when I originally saw her, they had definitely added volume to her hair. However, like, I don't know if it was like extensions or like just teasing it up, or maybe Cynthia Nixon didn't want to have her hair teased every episode, and so she was just like, let's just put a wig on because it makes it easier, then I can just take it off at the end of maybe that's what it was.
Now, speaking of Miranda, I have to ask, did you ever see Che Diaz in the wild?
Oh, but I did. Yes. Tell
me you were at the comedy concert.
No,
I would die if you were.
I was at the episode that they just had. They do the school benefit.
Oh, the auction.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that where Che Diaz gets up on stage and does like a couple seconds,
a tight 3
of banter. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was in that scene. So I got to witness that in person.
Like, did you know from production or anything that this was Miranda's love interest?
No, in fact, so of course you're on set and you're trying to pick up little morsels and tidbits of what's going on. As a fan, I'm dying to know what's happening. The scene where Miranda and Carrie are like talking, and then Miranda hears Che and she's like, oh, Che's here? That was down the hall from me. I couldn't hear the conversation. I mean, that's the weird thing. When you're background, you're literally, you could be like 20 feet away from them and they're still filming you. Like you're just walking across the room and they're at the very end of the corridor having the scene and you can't hear anything. We did get to hear that where Carrie was like shaking her head and she's like, okay, 1,500. Now you can bang the gavel. And so you get to know that. Like I knew that Carrie that the auction was happening and that she was going to do that.
And so you were the first person the first person I know to really lay eyes on this Che Diaz. What was your impression seeing the tight 3 in real life?
Che, I didn't quite know where Che fit in the show. There was no inclination that she was involved with Miranda at all. I just thought she was just a comedian, and I was like, I wonder how they're going to use her in this. I couldn't tell. I was like, where is Che fitting into this? I didn't know.
Hilarious.
Let's
say they, so we don't get canceled.
Correct. Sorry. They seemed funny when they were on stage.
Did they seem funny?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sarah Ramirez is beautiful. They look beautiful in person.
I was just, literally last night, I was just watching old clips of Cali and Arizona on Grey's Anatomy.
Uh-huh.
And she was so gorgeous on Grey's Anatomy.
I feel like there was an extra part that didn't make it to air that got cut from that scene. But I guess that happens all the time. They've cut out, the episodes I think are shorter than they should be because they shot several big flashbacks. They have now. Yeah, I remember when they were shooting them in the park and in the carriage ride, and
they've had to erase all of this from the show, which
they are probably so happy that they decided to kill off Chris Noth's character. Michael Patrick King's probably like, see, I told you this was a good idea.
Yes, for sure. But I think to erase, this is a storyline. Like you can't erase it's doing the show a disservice. It's part of Carrie's. It's in service to Carrie's storyline. In fact, I know Jen Kirkman, who's a comedian. It's a convoluted story, but anyway, she knows somebody who owns a lamp store in Brooklyn, and they use that lamp store as a filming location. Do you know that story?
No.
Oh, you're not.
So no, I'm anxious to hear where this is going.
They use this lamp store as a shooting location for the show, and they transformed I'm sorry. Her friend owns a shop, A friend of a friend owns a shop in Brooklyn, and they transformed it into a lamp store. So you know how Carrie picked that one lamp from the storage unit to bring back to the apartment? So I think that it was actually the lamp that now we don't find out what was beeping, and we got like no fucking payoff on that. I think where they were going was that actually it was the lamp that was beeping. She brings it to this lamp store to probably get rewired or fixed, and in that scene, the one that they filmed, she starts smashing she freaks out and starts smashing all the lamps. This is true. This is a first-hand account from the owners of the shop, they let them watch the filming because it was their shop.
Oh.
And what we've inferred is that she was seeing visions. She's convinced that Big is talking to her through the lamp, or she's having visions of Big. Unless this appears in the next 2 episodes, which it may, could totally cut out.
Interesting.
And all of the big, as well as all of the big flashbacks. So I think they've shot
I assumed that they were going to go down that path that sort of Big was haunting her.
Yes.
And that, like, because she put his ashes on the shelf and said, just until I know where you want to be. And I assumed that what they were going to do is use those intermittent flashbacks, because we saw her have one of those in that after he dies, it's that second episode, Miranda's sleeping next to her and she closes her eyes and she has that initial flashback of Chris Noth from the very first episode of Sex and the City walking away from Carrie in the bar, and he turns around and then suddenly Carrie wakes up. And I think that was going to be a device that they were going to use
100%.
Throughout the series. But then the Chris Noth allegations came out, and I think Michael Patrick King was like, we have got to cut those, because I
don't agree with that.
It's a conundrum. I think they decided to err on the side of caution and to not associate any future episodes with him, because you know that there would be people that be like, I can't believe this. This is ridiculous. You should take him out. And I guess they just wanted to be in solidarity with the victims, the women who were accusing him. And I see what you're saying, though, because if it's the characters, it's a fictional world, it's not like it's real.
Okay, additional questions I have for you. But did anything surprise you versus like what you filmed versus watching the final product?
I think the thing that surprised me the most was how fast the scenes go versus how long you're on set for. So that the very first scene that you see of the show with Bitsy Von Muffling approaching the ladies and talking, where's Samantha? Literally that took hours and hours to shoot, because just the choreography of getting all of the extras to cross and pass, and the crowd sort of cuts between them, and Carrie's like, oh, remember when we had to socially distance?
Yes,
all of that. I mean, we had to do that, just practice it multiple times to get the camera movement coming in right, to get the actors hitting their marks right. I mean, over and over and over again.
Was Michael Patrick King on set during the times you were there?
Yeah, so I think that's also what makes it challenging, is they are shooting so massively out of sequence that in my mind, I thought Michael Patrick King was directing all of the episodes. Like, I couldn't tell what episode was what and when it was happening. And I think all of the times that I was on set, Michael Patrick King was there for all of them.
Like, what was your observation of him? Like, is he like going up after scenes, like giving?
Yeah, he's very hands-on. Obviously, like the director, they have them off the main set, like in a sort of like a side area so he can watch the monitors, because I guess as a director, you want to be able to see what the cameras are getting, not what the actors are doing in person. After every take, he would go up and approach the actors, whoever it was that was in the scene, and, give notes. Again, I was always so far away, I could not hear what he was saying to them. It was great being sort of directed by Michael Patrick King in that very first, the season premiere, because I was originally meant to be the person standing directly in front of Sarah Jessica Parker. So that way, when I then peeled off, Carrie would turn around and she would be revealed to the camera. But they had me in this beautiful blue floral print, and Michael Patrick King came up to me and was just like, we need to move him. And then he looked at me and he's like, I'm sorry, it's not you, it's the shirt. And because they just wanted a darker color blocking Sarah Jessica Parker at first. And but for 5 minutes, I got to stand in front of Sarah Jessica Parker and, see Carrie up close and personal. And, to me, that was all worth it. Like, yeah, they pay you. And yeah,
wait, that raises a good question. How much do extras / background actor, and is there a distinction between an extra and a background actor? Or
it's the same. It's the same. Yeah, I think it used to be an extra, and now they've made it background actor to make it sound more professional and not as crass. But like you're basically an extra.
How much were you paid? Are you paid like per hour or per day?
You're paid for the day. So it's like, and I'm forgetting, right? It's not much. I mean, I think I want to say it's somewhere between 150 to 180. Again, I don't remember.
A day?
It's a day.
For all of those hours?
Yeah. So you're paid, it's like 160 for 10 hours. And then if you go beyond 10 hours, you're paid time and a half. And then if you go past another certain, I think if you go past 14 hours, then you're paid double time. And they don't want to do that because that's everybody. Anybody that's on set, crew, cast, starts getting paid double time. I believe, obviously, people like Sarah Jessica Parker, Kristen Davis, and Cynthia Nixon are exempt from that because I think they're just getting paid their $1 million an episode.
They're getting paid millions.
There's no way they're getting double time. But one, let me tell you, those ladies are troopers. Because I'm wearing comfortable Cole Haan Nike sold sneaker shoe sold shoes, and my feet would be dead at the end of the day. Like I mean, thank God I wasn't wearing a dress because in between takes, sometimes after 8 hours, I would start sitting on the floor because I'd be like, I can't stand up anymore. And I always would bring, I got to know how the game would go, and I would bring Advil so I could, once my feet started having pain, because you're just standing for hours in my lower back. And I was like, but those women, they're there the entire day and they are in stiletto Manolos all day long. And occasionally they would, like in between breaks, you'd have them, they'd sit down, or they would like have someone bring them like a pair of flip-flops to swap out their shoes. But I was like, how are they doing this? Like, I never saw Sarah Jessica Parker take her heels off one time. She was in heels all day.
When Willie Garson died, were people talking? Or actually, no. When did he die? In the scope of filming?
So I venture to say that Willie Garson informed Michael Patrick King that he was dying, and that's why they front loaded the scenes that he needed to record, and I assume that's why they were shooting so massively out of sequence right away, is they needed to get as much Willie Garson as possible. And so they front loaded a bunch of his scenes, because I believe I'm assuming all of the scenes that you see with Carrie and Anthony were scenes that were meant to be with Carrie and Stanford. That's it has to be that way. Like, they had to. I bet you they just rewrote that one scene where Stanford goes off to Japan with his little TikTok girl. Mm-hmm. They probably just threw that in when he died, because they probably had thought, oh, we don't know how long we're going to have him with us, so let's attempt to shoot all of this. And then
I hate the way they wrote that out.
It was. I was disappointed. I feel like they didn't honor the character the proper way. Like, yeah, I just felt like there could have been a better way. We didn't.
I mean, this entire show basically is cursed.
It was an uphill climb from Kim Cattrall not coming back, which, put a dent in storytelling for them. I think Chris Noth not wanting to be a part of it, and then them deciding, okay, let's kill off him, but then having to remove part of his character because of the allegations. And I'm sure, and obviously, as we've been texting back and forth, I mean, people are up in arms over Miranda this season. Yeah. Yeah. What's going on with her character?
Myself included.
Well, but you were very happy, weren't you? Happy that you were like,
no,
you missed the red hair. You missed the red hair.
Listen,
I know that.
I was on the ground floor of Miranda needs to be gay. Okay, I've been shouting this from the rooftops since the day this show was announced.
You must be happy. Or are you not happy with how they're doing it?
Not happy with the execution. I didn't, in my mind's eye, I did not imagine a Che Diaz in the picture.
What is it about Che that you don't like? I'm just curious. Some people just hate her, and I find her. I'm not annoyed.
Again,
by
let's
them.
say them so we don't fucking get
them. I know.
canceled.
I'm not annoyed by them.
Where do I begin? I don't think that these two characters would be into each other. I don't understand why Che is in quote unquote in love with, like, what's the attraction to Miranda? And maybe Miranda's just sort of like titillated by Che. But beyond that, and I said this in a previous episode that I talked about, and just like that in the very beginning, I don't like all the weed smoking. Like the emphasis on weed is like, why are we saying this in every single in every single scene of Che's? Like, why does a line have to be written about weed or like smoking the pipe? I hate the podcast, although they've kind of abandoned that. Although I will say I'm liking Che more now in these more recent episodes. The back half of the season, Che is more palatable to me than in the beginning. So I like I'm vibing with how it's going. More. I mean,
so. I kind of thought the kitchen scene in Carrie's apartment was kind of brilliant.
Well, I mean, that was like instant iconic. I mean, it was insane. Yeah. Like, it's like, this is not how I imagined it going.
Insane and like bonkers that like, I mean, think
launched 1,000 memes instantly.
Yes.
But that is success. The show is succeeding.
Correct. What I love is that they're challenging the tropes of what women in their mid-50s are supposed to be doing. Like, when you think about what's happened on this show so far, Carrie has peed in a Snapple bottle. Miranda has had finger sex in Carrie's kitchen. They've shown two full frontal males. They've shown Carrie double throw up. The date and Carrie double throw up.
Which, by the way, Michael Patrick King also did on The Comeback.
Yes. Oh, yes. True. Love me some Valerie Cherish. Yeah. There was somebody actually said Valerie Cherish should have been the replacement for Kim Cattrall, which I was like, I want to see that. But and just like
Can
that,
I give a little spoiler?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not the only person I know who did a bunch of background work on it, and just like that. No, this is so hilarious. So my very first, I mean, this is TMI, but my very first girlfriend, Elizabeth. Okay, she's not listening. She's not listening to this. She's like Miranda. She doesn't listen to podcasts. But we're still really, really close. So how this happened for my first girlfriend, who were still very good friends. So this happened for her because one of her best friends is a critically acclaimed writer-director. Her name is Nisha Ganatra, and she directed definitely the finale. I think the finale or the next episode that's about to air. I'm sure Michael Patrick King directed the finale. So she directed one of these last episodes. And Elizabeth, my ex, I will say Nisha also directed a ton of whatever. She directed Girls. She directed a bunch of episodes of The Real World, the Mindy Project, Shameless. Like, she has a ton of credits. Anyway, this is total spoiler because this is not aired. And like, I doubt they will edit this out because this is too huge. This is cover your ears if you don't want any spoilers. Elizabeth, my friend, was in a huge scene because Rock has a vay mitzvah.
Oh, interesting.
And she was part of that. Actually, I think she filmed a few scenes because once you were done, all of a sudden my phone was blowing up with texts from Elizabeth, like, I'm back on set with, and just like that. And she, probably because she's so close with the director, she really got to interface with Cynthia Nixon a lot. Like, they took a picture together. She's like, nice. Oh yeah, I talked to Cynthia Nixon for like a solid 20 minutes. But that's just a little tidbit. I doubt they'll cut that out, but that is a true spoiler. Any final thoughts? I mean, you've talked about how Marvelous Mrs. Maisel was a great experience. Which experience did you enjoy more? And like, how did they differ?
They were very, very different worlds because obviously Maisel is a period, it's a period show. So everything is being fabricated in that world, Every single extra has to have hair, makeup, and wardrobe. You get a fitting for that, which is not something that you do on And Just Like That. I loved Maisel just because it was my first exposure to background work and my first exposure to a huge show. I mean, that show, they have budget. They like their craft services and their meals for extras. It's like full on like super catering. It's amazing
A
food.
bigger budget than And Just Like That?
I don't know how much money they spend on either show, but the budget for the costumes and the wardrobe must be huge on Maisel because it's all vintage pieces. I mean, I was in a suit in my fitting and that they were putting me in for one of the scenes that I did. And I said, this suit is so amazing. It looks brand new. And they said, it is. I said, what do you mean? I thought all of the suits were vintage that you used. And they're like, it is vintage. I'm like, it's vintage, but it's brand new. And the wardrobe people were telling me that the store had all of these suits back in the 50s and 60s. They didn't sell. They put it in storage. And years later, a production company like Mrs. Maisel comes along and buys off all of this clothing. So literally, wow. I was wearing a suit from 1960 that had never been worn.
Now, did they tailor it to you?
Tailor to the point of like they'll do a hem or they'll do a waist. The volume of clothes, like you don't get to see, they don't tour you around the wardrobe scene. But I mean, it's like a warehouse sized wardrobe department with like clothes on racks and racks and racks. It's like it puts Carrie's closet to shame, let me tell you. And it's wonderful. There's, they have inspiration pictures all over the place. You feel like you're getting transported back in time.
Wow.
Everyone has to get their hair cut. If if you were to go in to the hair department, they'd be like, okay, we're cutting your hair, because all the women have to have their hair cut to a certain length. And then it's the women who take much longer in hair and makeup because everyone gets curlers that are being set. And then like literally hair, makeup, wardrobe probably takes 2 hours for all of the background. And the amount of background that they have is enormous. I think we did one scene. There was probably 200 extras. I mean, it's massive because unlike Sex and the City, Mrs. Maisel, you can't show anyone in current clothes or current cars in the background. So if they're doing a big, huge park scene of some sort, every single person on camera has to be background. They cannot. Whereas like Sex and the City, sometimes you do see fake, non-background people off in the background, way off in the background, but it doesn't matter because it's New York, it's current New York City. So but with Mrs. Maisel, it's, just as long a day, but it was fantastic just to be part of that world. I got to be on set at the soundstage for one scene. And then there was
Where's the soundstage?
They shoot at Steiner Studios in Brooklyn. So, and actually that's how I found out about And Just Like That, because you have to go to Steiner to get your COVID test. And as you walk through the soundstage, which is so Hollywood and so fantastic, you sort of just like, you just feel like you're, on a Hollywood soundstage. I was able to walk past one of the soundstages and they had And Just Like That on the side. And I was like, oh my God, they're shooting And Just Like That here. And I was dying to go inside because that's what they were building the sets. And I was they're building Carrie's apartment. I know they're building Carrie's apartment.
No, exactly. People were so upset. You know how the intro to episode, I think it was episode 7, where you see Carrie is writing her book, the entire opening sequence, and you see all the seasons change and you see her writing her book. Somebody of production, they released a photo of the set of that, like Carrie in the window. She's not literally standing on Perry Street up in the room. Right. That's a set. Like there's no real window.
So interestingly enough,
people were so upset for like that, for the fourth wall to be broken.
However, if you watch the first movie, they do have that exact shot, and she is in the window of the townhouse on Perry Street.
How do you know?
So because you can see the camera zoom in from the street, and go back and look at the movie. That is Carrie is really sitting in the window of the brownstone. And as opposed to, they probably just didn't have the access or the time to do that for And Just Like That. So they just did a fake. I didn't care too much about that. You know, I was like, that's fine.
I just found that
Plus
fascinating.
They wanted to show the passage of time, you know, so it's easier to do the changing of seasons on a soundstage than it is to do on Perry Street.
And people are still confused. Like when I listen to all these podcasts recapping And Just Like That, people are still confused thinking Carrie lives in the West Village. The brownstone is shot, the exterior, yes, is Perry Street, but she lives on the Upper East Side. Like this has been stated in the show 10,000. How many times do people need to hear that she lives on like East 78th Street or East 72nd Street? They're like, no, Carrie lives in the West Village. I'm like, oh my God. Watch the damn show.
In reality, the brownstone is in the West Village. Yes.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But people think Carrie actually lives downtown, and she doesn't. That just drives me crazy that people don't get it after 100 fucking episodes of this show. Jesus Christ. So when do the season that you shot of Maisel, does that air very soon?
I think Maisel premieres on February 18th, and I don't know what episodes I'm in at all. I don't know. This is not a spoiler because this was already leaked to like the paparazzi, and they put it out there. Milo Ventimiglia from This Is Us and Gilmore Girls is making some sort of cameo on the show. We don't know what his character is, but I was in production on the day that he was there, and he passed by and somebody was like, oh, isn't that Milo from This Is Us? And I was like, no, he's not on this show. And one of the production guys turned to me and goes, no, that's him. And I was like, oh, what? And I was like enthralled knowing that like he was there, because I was totally Team Jess on Gilmore Girls. And when I saw that he was on the show, I was like, what is he doing here? And literally we were shooting a couple of scenes in the late morning, and by the time we broke for lunch, it was all over the internet that he was on the show. So I'm assuming production, knowing that, because the paparazzi, I don't know if people know this, the paparazzi, they have like a relationship with the production departments now, where they're just allowed to come on set and photograph. Like the production people just allow them to be on the street. When we were shooting And Just Like That on the street, the paparazzi are just standing right there. Like it's not like it's a covert thing and they're trying to like sneak the pictures. They literally are right next to the camera sometimes. And
why would they allow that?
I guess production knows from a like publicity standpoint, they want the publicity.
But it spoils the whole show. We saw Carrie in all of her damn outfits.
I guess they figure you don't know exactly what's happening and it gets the news out there. But yeah, I mean, it's literally I would see sometimes the assistant director would be like, okay, you have to stand back. I'm letting you do your job. You have to let me do mine.
They probably figure we need to work with it rather than against it. We can't, they probably like, rather than fight against it, let's just try to control it. Let's like work with it.
If we let them do it, they'll get their picture and then they'll leave. And interesting, I found out because I befriended one of the paparazzi guys, because I was like, oh, send me a picture of me if you have it, because I was like, oh, I want to be next to Kristen Davis.
Yeah.
And I was so ecstatic because I was like, well, hey, if it's already out on Getty Images, then I can share it on social media. Like I didn't spoil this myself, but he was telling me an interesting fact about paparazzi work is in order to level the playing field, paparazzi photographers are not allowed to edit any of the photos that they take. So if it's just a rule with all paparazzi photographers that if you take a picture of Sarah Jessica Parker on the street, you cannot filter it, you cannot crop it, you cannot Photoshop her face, none of it. It has to be a completely unedited photo. And they do that because obviously some photographers can work faster than others, and they don't want people to be photoshopping fantastic pictures that all the magazines will then want to run. So literally it's just whoever can take the better picture, and that's what they pull off. And so but I never knew that. They were like, because I was like, oh, I'm surprised that you don't edit the photo. And he was like, no, we're not allowed.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I guess it's apparently an unspoken rule. And it's so that way you're just judging the people based on the photograph. So that's why I think everyone's always like, ooh, everyone looks rough in those paparazzi pictures. Well, You'd look rough too if you didn't have a filter.
Stefan, this has been eye-opening. Super
I was trying to think if there was any, like, there's no salacious gossip.
Listen, this is some real boots on the ground work you did. You put in long hours to be here today.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, and honestly, my parting note on And Just Like That, when Kristen Davis and Sarah Jessica Parker and Cynthia Nixon would leave set, they were very gracious. They would say goodbye to everybody. Thank you. They were super appreciative.
And I guess finally, let's do a plug. You just launched the brand new season of MLVC.
The Madonna podcast.
The Madonna podcast.
Yes, your place for all things Madonna Louise Veronica Ciccone.
Can you
we just started season 4, our 4th year of doing the podcast. I'm constantly amazed that we have been able to talk about Madonna for multiple years.
I mean, can you give a tease as to like an upcoming interview that you guys have?
An upcoming guest we have is Christopher Childers. He's one of the background dancers from Madonna's Girly Show.
Yes.
And he has some fantastic stories from him and not dating, but seeing Christopher Ciccone, Madonna's brother. So
author of My Life with My Sister Madonna.
Yes. So yeah, it's has some great stories, and yes, that's coming up.
And if anybody missed, this is This Week in Ciccone Hot Takes and Deep Dives edition. Everyone needs to go run to Debbie Mazar's one of her most recent posts where she addresses the rumors that Julia Fox is going to be playing her in the movie.
What do you think about that? Do you think she would make a good Debbie Mazar?
Yeah. I have no idea who Julia Fox is, by the way.
I honestly had no idea either.
Is she an actress? Who cares? I don't know.
She's Kanye's current beard. That's all I know. That's all I know.
All right, let's leave it there. But everybody go look at Debbie Mazar's latest post, because she writes a whole thing basically endorsing and how excited about her friendship with Madonna. And
we tried to get her on the show and she said no.
Well, she basically said it all in that post.
I know. But yeah, she's like, I don't do interviews about Madonna. I was like, okay.
Thank you, Stefan. Oh, tell everybody.
Thanks for having me, Jess.
Tell everybody where they can find the podcast and follow you.
Sure. We are on Twitter and Instagram at MLVC Podcast. We also just started a YouTube channel. Hopefully we'll be able to upload some original content to that. Right now, it's just old episodes. Streaming wherever you listen to podcasts. So after you're done listening to this, go check out MLVC, the Madonna Podcast, where you don't have to be a Madonna fan to listen to us, because we just like to have a kiki. It's just, silly. And Jess has been on the show a couple of times.
Yes.
And
you guys can follow me. Go to Jess X NYC. I have tons of videos from past interviews. I just uploaded highlights from my interview with the Queer as Folk Boys. I have my interview with Sandra Bernhard. They're all
so
there.
Good too.
Isaac Mizrahi. All those videos are there. I've cut together highlight clips. Also, extended videos are on YouTube. Just search Hot Takes and Deep Dives, my name, and that's it. Thank you, Stefan.
Thanks, Jess.
Love you.